Good evening, everybody. How's it going? It's me, Comic Crack, and it's Sunday, and we had our chat this afternoon on my channel with Sleepy Reader and Rasa. Thanks, everybody, for joining us and hanging out. It's probably going to be a shortish video tonight. I don't have a ton of things to talk about, just really two books that I read. But we'll start out with what we watched yesterday. So for Christmas, my son asked for a Criterion Channel subscription. So we got him that for a Christmas present, and he's been kind of devouring a bunch of stuff on there. AFPC, how are you? So I follow the Criterion Channel on Twitter. Hello, Gore Vidal, how are you? And they had a listing of what's coming out this month, and they're doing a bunch of Sterling Hayden movies, Asphalt Jungle, Long Goodbye, The Killing, etc., etc. Sterling Hayden was an actor in kind of the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. He started in the 40s, I think, and kind of abandoned Hollywood and went to sail around the world. Ended up writing a book called The Wanderer about his life, and I think he was doing a follow-up or did a follow-up to it. Wanderer, I think, went up to about 1966. Ragamuffin, how are you? Fantastic actor. Love the guy. He was a hardcore alcoholic, served in the war, just a kind of rough and tumble kind of dude. And he, for me, steals the show in The Long Goodbye. It's such a fantastic movie. So backing up for 1 second, there's going to be there's a documentary that Criterion Channel is going to be putting out. And I've never seen the documentary on him, so I asked my son to bookmark it for us, and we're going to try to watch it this weekend, but I don't know, maybe it comes out later this month, or maybe it's coming out soon. I don't really know. It wasn't available. So we watched, my wife, my son, and myself watched The Long Goodbye, because it's one of my favorites. Just kind of all around movies. I don't know a ton of Robert Altman movies. I've seen a small handful of them, but this one is just fantastic. The detective, Philip Marlowe, from the Raymond Chandler books. The idea is that he kind of wakes up after 30-year sleep or whatever it is, and they do say the amount in kind of the features of this, but he's kind of just trying to figure out. He's kind of floating through the whole movie. He's kind of this just this guy who's weaving and bobbing and just kind of reacting to the things around him and doesn't really understand, but kind of lets everything go. Pretty easygoing kind of guy, and is just kind of faced with this mystery. But Sterling Hayden in this one is just, his performance is phenomenal because he's pretty unhinged, as he kind of was in person. I don't know how much improvising was going on. It feels like every single scene with Sterling was improvised. And it's just unbelievable. So I'm looking forward to seeing more. I have The Killing as well. I've seen Asphalt Jungle. I can't remember. I wish I could remember. There was a couple of other films that they have of his that I haven't seen. So we got in the mood for Altman, and we went on to another Altman classic, McCabe and Mrs Miller, with Warren Beatty and Julie Christie, amongst other people, Renee Auberjonois, a couple of other faces that I recognize, but I'm blanking on their names right now. And this one kind of, I really enjoyed it as we were watching it. I thought it was fantastic. Woke up this morning kind of still thinking about it. The afternoon, still thinking about it. Talked to my son about it. Talked to my wife about it. And just all of us really, really enjoyed both of these films. They really liked The Long Goodbye a little more than this one. But man, this one, sitting with this one afterwards, holy shit, is it ever good. There's a whole bunch of special features I haven't dipped into. We just watched one of the documentaries with a bunch of the actors talking about the filming of it. This is just a phenomenal movie. I mean, it feels like, especially knowing the little bit that I know about Altman being kind of this anti-establishment kind of dude and some of his thoughts about things, this one plays just as well now as it ever has. The idea of this little businessman kind of, starting up this town and kind of getting approached by the government or the powers that be, and basically giving him two options: sell us everything or we'll fucking kill you. And that's really the only options that you have. It's just a really, really good movie. Um, it was also just kind of how it portrayed those times, I thought was really well done as well. I mean, they had to build this little town from scratch. So as they were building it, they were filming kind of in sequence. And a lot of the people that were building the sets, they just dressed them up in the period clothes and they kept them in the movie, in the backgrounds and things as they were continuing to build. And then they hit winter. I think it was all shot in Vancouver. And they hit winter, and there was this snowstorm that hit them. And everybody was saying, the snow will go away really quick. Don't worry about it. We'll just shoot some interiors. Altman just had a kind of a feeling about the snow and shot the final scene of the movie in the snowstorm. And it really just adds to it and really kind of puts a really harsh kind of pin in Beatty's character, Mccabe, by the end of it. So it's really stuck with me. If you haven't seen Mccabe and Mrs Miller, I would highly recommend this one. It's really, it feels like it's one that I might watch again. Is there a commentary on this one? Yeah, there is a commentary with Altman and David Foster, so I'll absolutely be watching that again to listen to that commentary track. So it was really fantastic to watch a couple of Altman films. I'd like to do a couple more of them. I'd love to see Popeye again. Believe it or not, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I've never actually seen MASH, the movie MASH. So I'd love to see that one as well. I'd like to kind of dive into more Altman while we're in that mindset. Yes, he was absolutely in Doctor Strangelove. And in one of the documentaries that he talks about on YouTube, he talks about doing a scene there and doing like 48 takes, which was very unlike him to do that many. He always had to do a bunch of takes, but he really started disintegrating. And apparently when he went to Kubrick about it and kind of apologized, this is Sterling Hayden, when he went to Kubrick to apologize about it, Kubrick just said, just go for it. He said, honestly, the fear that we're seeing in your eyes as you're trying to perform this stuff may speak more volumes about this character than you trying to remember the lines. So don't worry about it. You're doing great. And they did it, and he finally got it. But it's a very impressive performance, to say the least. Yeah, electric performance is right. I'm assuming you're still talking back to Long Goodbye. Beatty was in a role at the time. See Shampoo. Okay. Surprised you haven't seen it. I know, I'm surprised I haven't seen MASH. Popeye, I thought, was really incredible. He does it in Mccabe and Mrs Miller too. He does this thing where he has people kind of mumbling and talking to themselves and talking overlapping dialogue and stuff, which is such a huge no-no in kind of the more mainstream movies and other movies and things. You really want everybody's tracks clean. He doesn't want that because he wanted to apparently get the sense that as kind of you're walking by people and hearing snippets of conversation, you don't hear every word, but you can sort of get the gist of what they're talking about. That's what he was trying to do with Mccabe and Mrs Miller. And I think he does it to the same, if not even better effect in Popeye, because of the way everybody talks in that movie, because they're kind of these caricatures. They have these unusual voices. It sort of adds another layer to that idea that you're just kind of sampling bits of dialogue from people. For a comic book movie, I guess it could be called. It's surprisingly an incredible movie. Oh, hey, look at this. Hayden was in a Rod Sterling scripted Christmas Carol film. He was Scrooge in a Cold War setting. Oh, dude, that would be fantastic. Nashville and Popeye. Yeah, those are two fantastic ones to see for sure. But yeah, check out Mccabe and Mrs Miller. Gore Vidal, while you're here, I was looking for a couple of books I've been doing some kind of hunting on Marketplace for things and selling some things. Came across a listing for, I think it was in Toronto or something, and decided to contact a couple of my local or one of my local kind of comic shops slash used bookstores to see if he had any copies. He had a Modesty Blaze book, Sabretooth by Peter O'Donnell. 60, I want to say 66. So first published 1966, this edition from 1967. Really thick volume, actually, for $2. It was the only one that he had, but I snatched it up. I'm about a dozen pages into it already. I just kind of dipped into it yesterday afternoon. So we're just really, really very early stages of the setup of the story and things, introducing to kind of our main villains. The twins have just come out into the kind of a Coliseum type of gladiator spot, I guess, for lack of a better word. And we're just kind of hearing about their history, about how they were Siamese twins that are eventually separated and they hated each other's guts. The only time that they got along was when they're kind of in the throes of fighting to the death. Other than that, they constantly bicker, and they wear this kind of contraption that kind of puts them back together to some degree, even though they can't stand each other. So a pretty good setup so far. I'm looking forward to digging into this more. I'm going to check out a couple of the other used bookstores. The one around the corner from my office, I'll have a look there too. He may have some buried away in the racks. So I thought I'd show you that one there, Gore. Finally followed through on your advice. Yeah, I don't think I'll regret it either. I'm loving, as you well know, I love the Modesty Blaze that I've read so far. So it's fantastic. Yes, it is quite a cat suit. It sure is. There you go. It's quite the hairdo as well, too. Oh, geez, they're brutal. Wait till they confront Modesty and Willie. O'Donnell wrote the best and most sinister villains. Awesome. I'm really looking forward to it. Into it was nice too. It's a different mindset, but to kind of get into this and scanning every page for a picture. But no, it's good though. I'm digging it. So beyond kind of the cull, which I'm not going to talk about anymore, suffice it to say, I love it. The only two books that I read this week were two graphic novels from Ablaze, and I did talk about them in the chat this afternoon. So for those of you who were here this afternoon, I won't be offended if you take off, but I did want to kind of talk about them on their own. So the two books were The Old Geezers and A Man's Skin, both from Ablaze, both kind of comic book size hardcovers. Both of them really great reads, kind of one right after the other. I picked up The Old Geezers and kind of just couldn't put it down. And it was the same with A Man's Skin. Even though they were very different mindsets, they were really great to kind of read back to back. So apparently the popularity of the Geezers can't really be described, I guess, here in North America. It's hugely popular, and they even made a movie out of it. There's a bunch of volumes kind of about these three old dudes in their 70s who have just kind of, they're still friends. They've been friends since they were kids. And it's just kind of where they are in their lives, still trying to be not quite relevant, but just kind of living their lives and according to their ideals. One of them is a union activist. One is kind of like an anarchist, troublemaker, shit disturber. And then one kind of went into business for himself and traveled the world and kind of, I'm assuming amassed a small fortune. So there's a couple of, so they just kind of go through these characters. They just follow these characters. They come together when the union activist wife dies. And I'll show what I said this afternoon too, just to kind of have it stand in this video as well. So, I mean, page 2, we see our kind of our shit disturber in his house, getting ready putting his suit on. And I mean, just look at the body language, the posture, and he gets into his car that's covered in bird shit and hauls ass out of there to go to pick up his buddy who's in an old folks home. And so, I mean, I killed myself laughing at that page. I thought that was really great. And then I got to this one, and I literally had to put the book down and have a really good belly ache. Just the caricature of him trying to get out of his chair, and the look on his face and how his face is turning red. Just absolutely, I lost it. It was just so enjoyable. So, I mean, 3 pages in, and I already knew that I was going to absolutely adore this book. The expressions on the characters' faces, their body language, they're sort of always in movement. But again, it's this body posture, like even seeing him walking up to greet his friends. They're there, and of course, boozing it up after the funeral. And they all kind of get together, just these 3 old dudes. And clearly they just have a really great relationship with each other. And it just kind of just goes from there, as they kind of relive their past, reliving the past of beating the shit out of an automated piece of machinery in the warehouse, full on just sabotaging, and kind of going on a road trip. They look at kind of this space where there's this new factory that he used to work in, and kind of remembering back to what it was like when they were kids, and kind of this idea they say they buried some treasure there. So very, very cool. I don't really know what else to say about it other than it's a super enjoyable read. It's pretty, like, there's some serious shit in it for sure, but it's still approached in a really, really lighthearted kind of way. And I mean, it's one of the things that I see that it was made into a motion picture, and I just don't know how that would translate. It would just probably come off as another, I don't know, half-assed comedy, I guess, with some crusty old dudes, reliving their past. I just don't know how it would translate. I think the reason that it translates so well into comics is because of stuff like that. You're seeing that kind of this poor fat old bastard trying to get up out of this car here. That stuff is just funnier, I think, in a comic as opposed to seeing it on film. I don't know. Maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe I would see the movie and completely retract everything I've said. But yeah, so as soon as I was done, I messaged my comic guy who got this one in for me, and asked him to order the second volume. Like, look at that face on this nurse here. When are you seeing a facial expression like that, and her body positioning there as she's kind of talking to him, and it kind of matches the tone that you have in your head for her talking. Um, yeah, very, very fun. Really looking forward to volume number 2. The usual complaint that it's a little small. Who's talking doom? What's going on here? Anyway, really great. Drop dead joints hit the whip like bird shit. I recommend Michael Haneke's Amour, about an elderly couple dealing with a wife's stroke and its aftermath. I think it was Emmanuel Riva from Hiroshima Mon Amour last film. I wonder if I've seen that one. I've seen a few Haneke films. Bars at AFPC. Doom rip, absolutely. And then the other one that I read that we'll talk about, I think I did it justice again this afternoon. I can't, I try not to overstate stuff, and I end up doing it all the fucking time anyway. This was really a phenomenal, phenomenal read, and a really interesting read of stuff, something that I wouldn't ever really gravitate towards, not by any particular choice, but I found it, man, another one that just completely sucked me into the world. We have in Renaissance Italy. It starts off on the back, once upon a time in Renaissance Italy. So it gives you that kind of, it's a fairy tale, basically. And our main character is Bianca. She's being married off to this guy, Giovanni. And she's kind of talking to her mom and her aunt about it, and talking about what to expect when she gets married. And I don't know this guy, and I don't really have any interest in it, and I'd rather marry somebody that I love, and da 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 da. And just kind of playing through the roles of what her life is going to be like as a wife in this new relationship. There's a number of times, I didn't point it out. There's a few times in here where we do this kind of panelless movement through a landscape, through the kind of architecture, through a building, which I always love. I really love it. So that's the thing, though, Ragamuffin. This one, it won all these awards. So this one came out in 2020, and this English version is just from this year. So I don't know what Ablaze is like as a publisher as far as kind of what their reach is, but I think it did pretty well. It just hasn't found an audience here yet. So she ends up going to spend some time with her aunt. She's now met Giovanni. She ends up going to spend some time with her aunt just to kind of take her mind off of things. And her aunt introduces her to this suit of a man that they've had for generations, that generations of women have put on for short periods of time. Her mother apparently only put it on one time and was very disturbed by it. And then other people in her kind of lineage have kind of donned the man suit for longer stretches. And Bianca ends up wearing it and really enjoying being in this, not only in this man's skin, but really finding she is thriving within kind of the man's world. She's able to kind of express parts of her personality that she just couldn't before. And just to kind of give you a sense, they give you a nice sense at the beginning of this man's suit. It's really kind of a part of, once you put it on, it's really a part of you. So just to kind of sell you further to kind of the fairy tale side of it, that she becomes a man, basically. And it's to kind of, the whole idea was that she wanted to meet with Giovanni and get to know him a little bit better as a man, as opposed to kind of learning what he's like when they get married. She wants to try to kind of meet him in his own stomping grounds, basically, and try to befriend him as a man, to get to know him in a little bit of a different way. Turns out Giovanni is a homosexual, and Lorenzo is what Bianca ends up calling herself when she's put on the man's skin. They start to form a relationship, and eventually they fall in love. And it's really, like I said, it's not a story that I would necessarily just gravitate towards. But once I read it, it's completely enraptured with it. I think it's a really interesting way to approach this kind of subject matter. And especially when you place it in a very specific time, you can deal with a lot of other things as well, too, especially when the roles of the males and females in this society were very, very different. So just really exploring kind of sexuality, what it means to be a man and a woman, period, what kind of suits you have to put on in general when you're trying to kind of hide maybe parts of your personality. Just so well done. And one of the things that I spoke about this afternoon, I don't want to go too much further than that, because it really has a beautiful arc within this. So it's about 160 pages. And at the end, they've got something that I've never seen before. And it makes me wonder where this was kind of positioned. I think it's originally French. I wonder if this is something that made it into schools, or what the idea was with this book when it was released, because they've got a discussion guide that just gives you a bunch of points. Things like Just talking about the clothing is a major point of contention throughout the comic. Discuss how appearances weave through the narrative and motivate actions by characters like Bianca, Angelo, and Pecorina, etc. Gives you kind of a synopsis, some of the themes, and just some kind of discussion points, which is such a great idea. And then even some project ideas. So some projects that you could do, I don't know, with your students, with your friends, whatever it is. Even things talking about engaging with your local community by seeking out organizations advocating for the rights of the LGBTQ plus community. Learn about the challenges happening where you live and consider how you might contribute to solving them. You might even propose hosting a book club for a man's skin. So, and then we get some sketches, some preliminary sketches and color studies for the characters in the book. Really, really phenomenal. I mean, Ablaze is so much on my radar, even with the Sumerian stuff as well, too. They're just really on my radar as a company. There's so many books on their website that I just don't know what they're about, that I really feel like I want to explore them a little more this year. Of course, beef wrap, the classic beef wrap. Saw that. Premise book sounds amazing. I'll seek it out. Yeah, very highly recommended. Email to Carol for Another Christmas, the Hayden film. Oh, awesome. Film is on YouTube. It has all-star cast. Peter Sellers' performance is masterful as the Imperial Me. Very cool. Yeah. Maybe if it gets animated, it'll make bigger waves. Yeah, I mean, who knows, right? But yeah, seek out Ablaze, seek out those two books. I think everybody who kind of watches my channel, and especially those of you hanging out with me here, I think you guys especially would appreciate both of these books. Yeah. So that is it for this week. Yeah, there's nothing else. I still have a stack of stuff on my to read pile, but I just haven't sat and read too much. Those were pretty much it. I've got a Drawn and Quarterly book waiting for me at my shop as well too, so I'm hoping I can pick that up this week. It was the one that was it looked kind of Tintin-ish, and I'm completely blanking on the name of it, but it was another one that I ordered. I just had to put it on hold, picked up those two instead. So that's it. We'll see you next week, everybody. Thanks for hanging out for a shorter video this week. Talk to you later.